What's up, everybody? So today I will be showcasing the Green Arrow mod. And unfortunately, it didn't log me in the first time, but now we're good to go. So when you first download this mod, the first thing you want to ensure is that you have this check mark next to the Green Arrow ESP. Now, I highly recommend and I highly suggest that if you download one of these mods, you use it with a vanilla game. And by that I mean don't have several hundred different mods installed, because of course there will be conflict. I'm not necessarily saying that my mod will conflict with other people's, but there may be certain things or aspects that other people, or modders I should say, may modify that pretty much conflicts with what I have modified. So if you're experiencing issues, I highly suggest this. Either start a new game with only this particular mod enabled, or disable all mods that you have enabled and only enable this mod, or disable all mods, make a new save file, load that new save file with none of the mods activated to ensure that things are operating normally, quit, enable the particular mod that you're trying to use, start that load game with the mods that's all deactivated, and everything should work. So for the sake of this video, I'm only going to have one mod installed. I'm not going to enable all the others because of course they're not really going to cause any conflict, but we just want things to be smooth. So upon starting, you will get a quest, and that quest basically allows you to be the Green Arrow, and it spawns all of his arrows, his costumes or armors, outfits, specific perks and weapons into your inventory. So first off, I'm going to cover all the arrows, and majority of these arrows I'm not going to really use on the enemy because they're pretty much self-explanatory. So the first one, the first one is the explosion arrow. So basically you shoot, boom, it blows up, and it does, you know, explosion damage and fire damage. The others I would demonstrate on the enemies, but the ones that really don't do anything are these three. So the shock arrow, you shoot, boom, another explosion does shock damage, and of course you have the regular plain old arrow, and this one you can recover. The others I made it to where you can't recover them due to the fact that they have a certain effect and they explode on impact. So I just kind of tried to give it that realistic feel. Also, once you deplete all your ammo for all these different arrows, which will take quite some time, you are able to craft them. Now, the ingredients that I've provided for these arrows are scarce, and I wanted to make the player actually use things that they don't always use to craft these arrows. So if you want to go for that lore type of feel and be adventurous, you know, I've made it where these arrows require you to do some hunting for the ingredients. I may update in the future all these arrows to make them a little bit more unique when coming to crafting them. Other than that, we have his weapons, and I didn't really add too many different type of bows as of right now because I've already spent over maybe a week porting this dude and upgrading it, so a lot of things people won't really recognize that I did, but I've upgraded a lot of the shaders on the existing models and added some better effects, and that's the bow. Then you have his knife, which is pretty sweet, and yes, it's pretty OP along with the bow. I may up the price on the knife, who knows. So let's get into the first arrow, which is the Fear Toxin. And if anybody is a fan of DC, they should know what Fear Toxin is. For those that are not, basically it's a chemical that Scarecrow made to put fear into people. So, you know, if you've ever played Arkham Knight or Arkham Asylum, you've seen that the Scarecrow has some weird toxin. So you can see like a little black mist floating around the enemy's body, which indicates that they're currently being affected by the fear toxin. And you don't necessarily have to shoot the enemy with the arrow. You can just shoot around them and it should affect that enemy. So basically what they would do is retreat for a small duration of time, and basically after the fear toxin wears off, they'll pursue you again. So maybe in the future I may make another version that's a little bit stronger, but right now we just gonna keep it generic. So flashbang. Now a lot of these arrows will affect you if you shoot them within the vicinity that you're in. So as you can see, you're also blinded. So I really recommend, if you're gonna use the flashbang, shoot it from a distance, and this stuns the enemy for a small duration of time. I didn't want to over exaggerate it to make it to the point where they just don't never get up. So as you can see, after it wears off, you know, they are back pursuing. Excuse me. So the frost arrow is another arrow that affects the area around the enemy, and basically you don't necessarily have to shoot them with it. So as you can see, there's a sort of frostbite effect going on. You can see it on the enemy body, and it slowly drains their health, and it also makes them slow. So the more energy the opponent has, you know, the slower they'll get as they pursue you. Now it also does last for a small duration of time, but every time you use it, it multiplies. So be aware of that. And let's go to the poison arrow. The poison arrow is similar to the frost arrow, however, it does more damage. So basically, if you shoot an area around the enemy, it will knock them down and drain their health a little bit faster. Of course, if you shoot multiple arrows at that enemy, then it would multiply the damage. The shock arrow is basically an arrow that does shock damage, so if you hit them with it, it's gonna electrocute them. I didn't really make that arrow do damage to the area around the enemy. Since we already got several arrows that do that, the shockwave arrow doesn't necessarily apply to electricity. Basically, this arrow is similar to the shout that knocks enemies backwards. So I did over exaggerate the force that's applied. Therefore, it gives the player, you know, a little excitement. So I'll allow it to knock people back a bit further than what's realistic. As you know, I thought it was a cool thing. And this does affect most creatures in this game. However, not all creatures. And I'm just gonna end that note right there. And lastly, we have the tranquilizing arrow. And this arrow basically puts enemies to sleep. And you can see the little Z's hovering over their bodies to indicate that they have been knocked out, and you can also hear the snoring. And this doesn't last as long either, but the more that you shoot those arrows within the proximity of an enemy or NPC, the longer the effect will be applied. So that's all the arrows, and I will head to another area away from enemies to showcase the armors, and lastly I will showcase crafting. But while I'm on my journey to Whiterun, when you do start, you do get perks, and these perks are the generic ones from the vanilla game. Basically, I've given you all the archers perks, meaning you get the zoom in, the hold your breath, all of those things, and critical damage. Whatever is the archer's perks, I've pretty much gave all of them to Green Arrow. So if you want to work for those, I'm sorry, but that's just one thing that I'm not going to disable, because he's already a pro archer or supreme or superior, however you want to put it, and I find it unnecessary for him not to be OP. That's what superheroes are, super overpowered. So if you're gonna complain, go right ahead, but I'm not going to make any adjustments. Since we're away from the enemies now, I showcase all the different costumes. So this is the Injustice costume, the default one, and I do a quick 360. Then we have the alternative Injustice costume. And you can see I put a lot of detail into these. Of course, this will overwrite the default character. So if you're using like a red guard or a woman or Khajiit, it's going to make it be this particular model. Let's see, next we have the CW costume, and this is from the TV series. Get away from these people that's speaking. And if you've used this mod previously, it didn't look as appealing. Yeah, whatever, shut up, bitch. I'm trying to do a showcase. Fuck out of here. So there's a lot more detail. You can see the detail in the leather and the fabric detail, which is the hood. And I've also made certain areas shiny. And on the old mod, there was a issue with the animations, and I've corrected that issue. And lastly, we have the island. I don't necessarily know what this is from, but I'm guessing this is when he got stranded on an island somewhere. So this is more of a lore friendly costume for those that want to stay in a particular lore, which is quite fine with me. I mean, to each their own on that note. And all of these can be crafted. So if you want to run around with a follower, you can also craft it for them. Come on, there we go. So I don't know if I mentioned this before, but if I did, I'm gonna mention again. So all of these arrows have different ingredients, and I may make it even more unique to the specific arrow and what it does. So for those that want to be adventurous and have something to do, I've provided a quite lengthy ingredient list, which is also in the lore of this game. So some of these require some very rare ingredients, and they may not be easy to obtain. However, I didn't make the amounts as extensive. However, you do need to get a lot of leather to craft these arrows, and each individual arrow is unique to its own. That's pretty much it on that note. The armors, they're kind of unique in a certain way. I don't know exactly what category I put them under. Let's see. So there's the bow. Okay, so they're all under leather. And they're not that unique, but you get the idea. And I'm thinking that is all we have to demonstrate. So I don't have any of the ingredients to craft these arrows. So I will be holding a vote poll for the next upcoming mod. So I highly recommend, if there's a particular mod that you want, you vote that mod. The mod that gets the most votes will be the next one that I do. And I'm going to make the poll a little bit longer this time. That way more people will be able to vote. If you like what you saw, please subscribe to stay up to date and receive more notifications and videos. Also, if there's something that you don't like, please leave a comment below stating why you don't like that particular thing. What else? If you have a request or you need help troubleshooting, please visit my Discord channel, or please visit the other link provided, which is the forums. I haven't really been too active on my forums lately because I just haven't had the time. I'm a little bit more interactive on the Discord channel, being that it's instant and doesn't require too much time. Of course, the request list is just beyond what one person can do. I mean, I'm trying my best to get what I can done, but you gotta remember, I'm just one person. If you feel generous and you want to help contribute, I will also have a donation link below. Anything helps. I'm not necessarily telling you to do so, but if you feel generous and you want to be a kind person, I would really appreciate that. Lastly, everyone, have a great day, a great week, and a great weekend if you're tuning in on one of those specific things. And on that note, I'm out.